Welcome back to Coffee and Conversation. For all you Audie fans, deep hibernation. We are expecting a massive snowstorm tonight. Audie is hiding out from it. I do not think we will see him, although he was extremely active this morning. He was running around like a little nut kitty. And when I went out the back door, I'll explain that later. When I went out the back door, he followed me out. And he usually doesn't do that. Audie likes to go out the front door. The back door is for the peasants. It's Audie. He should be out the front door. So, do I think we'll see him? No, but we might. So, we're going to quickly break for the intro, and we will be right back. So, I did something with my Sunday evening video. That's for the Just Chattin' series that I've never done it before, and frankly, I never thought I would do this. I try to keep those videos, I try to film them shortly before they go on air because I want to be current with whatever information, because those are time-sensitive subjects. This time, I had to do this another way. I had to run these videos. Basically, I'm filming two videos back to back because we are expecting a massive storm. I got an email from my electric company telling me there's a good chance we are going to lose power. So I need to get everything in YouTube's hands, tell them when to make the videos public, and hope for the best. But once they are uploaded, then, YouTube servers are not going to go down. They are not located on the East Coast, so they're fine. Once they get their hands on the content, it will be released. So, for those of you who had sent comments in yesterday's video advising me to stay warm, stay safe because of the storm, thank you. This is, as I'm sure you must realize, nothing compared to some of the storms that I have weathered when I was in New England. But still, for around here, because I'm in Pennsylvania now, this is quite a big deal. So, let me tell you what happened last night. Sudden drop in temperature, and my pipes froze. Well, I say pipes sort of loosely. I believe I know which length of pipe froze, and I believe it was the length of pipe that runs from the water main to my system. I think that's what froze. Point is, no water, kind of, sort of. You can turn on every faucet in my house. Nothing's going to come out. However, I have a spigot that goes directly from my water main outdoors because, as many of you know, the schoolhouse is ancient. So that part of my plumbing it was put in, oh gosh, probably more than 100 years ago. So that part is solid, and it is not going to be unsettled by a minor temperature drop. And as I mentioned about Audie following me out the back door, that spigot is right outside my back door. So I go to the back door with a bucket, go outside, fill the bucket with water at the spigot, turn around, take 3 steps, and I am back inside again. So it's not as if I have zero water. Now, it's not running out of the faucets, and if I want hot water, it's going to have to get poured into a pot and cooked on the stove, or more likely, I'm sure my British friends will remember this because I got so excited. What was it, about 2 years ago, I think, when I bought an electric kettle. I didn't even know such things existed. Meanwhile, our British friends have been hoarding this all to themselves for Lord only knows how long, and me, no kettle. Well, I have a kettle now, so I can take that water in, put it in my kettle, and in like 90 seconds, it's boiling. I love this. I love that kettle. It is amazing. It has changed my life. And if I drank tea, it probably would have sent me into seventh heaven. I'm not much of a tea drinker, but still, I love that kettle. So I have water. I can make it hot with my kettle if I want to, but am I going to get a shower? Not here. Again, I mentioned this, that I've signed into a gym, so am I going to get a shower? Yes, I am. I'm just going to have to go somewhere else for it, and I don't know how long it's going to be before the pipes end up thawing. We'll see. Hopefully, it won't be very long, but again, I have water, and it's not as if I am so spoiled by the 21st century that I can't cope with going outside, getting a bucket of water, and heating it on the stovetop if I want to wash. I can do this. That was everyday life for my grandmother. So, yeah, of course I can do it. And it might actually even be fun. Audie doesn't think so. But it was that little trip outside to grab water when Audie followed me out the back door because he was unused to having the back door open. So, because I don't generally go out the back door with Audie. I let him out the front door. I go out the back door, not the cat. So, of course, he had to go out, check everything out. He goes out the back door, goes down the steps, looks around. I came back in, I closed the door, and I had the storm door closed, but I hadn't closed the interior door. And I was just about to close it when I heard scratching on the storm door because, yeah, Audie wanted to come back in again, and he didn't want to have to go around the front way. So he's having fun with this, but it's also unsettling for him. So we'll have to see how well he copes. But anyway, I'm grateful for your concern. And even though I'm not going to say it has been completely problem-free, it's nothing disastrous. It really isn't. If this were a complete nightmare for me, I would put my cat in a carrier and I would go downtown and stay in a hotel until the crisis passes. But it's not. So we're not going anywhere. We're just going to, I don't know, rough it. Play camping. Let Audie out the back door a few more times. We will be fine. But thank you very much for your concern. There are probably a lot of people who need it more than I do. Although I will say that where I am located, we are in that section on the radar map that indicates we will be the hardest hit. But so is Colleen in Ohio. So a lot of people are being hard hit by this. All right, off that. Now we're going to talk about the topic that I did want to discuss, because we touched on this yesterday, and I thought we should pursue this a little more. And this is the unpleasant side of what I was talking about yesterday, and that the general topic for discussion yesterday was financial preparedness. The subtext is end-of-life preparedness. What happens when you get older and you need to make plans to move along, go somewhere else, shuffle off this mortal coil, put it any way you like. And I wanted to share with you my one experience with end-of-life planning that was beyond belief. My grandmother and I were very close. We had a very stormy relationship, but we were very close. When I was 15, my grandmother sat me down and said, when I get older, if I lose my wits, if I am no longer thinking rationally, I want you to end my life. I was 15. Now, I was unsettled by this, but she was adamant. She was like, you have to promise. and I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. And it took her probably an hour of badgering to get that promise out of me. I did, in the end, promise her I would do this on the theory that I would never have to. This wasn't going to happen. You know what life is like when you're 15, and you can't even imagine what your life is going to be like when you're 20, never mind what your life is going to be like when you're 30 or older or whatever. So eventually I relented and I promised her. Now, she had a very clear plan. I am not going to share it with you because it was a meticulous plan and it would have worked, because my grandmother was, she had been the private secretary for the governor of Massachusetts. And in the war, because her only child, my father, went into the service, served overseas. By the way, her husband also was serving as well. My grandfather was a career military officer, so of course he was serving. She changed careers in the war and went to nursing school. So she hit the top of her profession as a stenographer, and then later became a nurse. And because she was a nurse, she knew exactly what to do and how to do it. And like I say, not sharing that information because this is not the How to Kill Your Grandmother video channel. So I never really thought much about it. Later, my grandmother got older. Later, she very much lost it. And at that point, I had to confront the fact that I had promised her. She had begged me, and I had promised her I would not force her to live like that I would stand between her and that fate. And of course I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I loved my grandmother, but she never should have forced me to make that promise in the first place. But the point is, I did make that promise, so I was racked with guilt. Now, fortunately for me, her doctor was on my side. When I had gotten her a doctor, because I had been made her guardian as she was no longer able to care for herself, when I had selected her doctor, I got a psychiatric gerontologist. Basically, he was qualified as a psychiatrist, and he was qualified as a doctor, a medical doctor for the elderly. He was a wonderful guy. He understood my grandmother's desires, and he also clearly understood that I could not act on them. So it's not like he ever looked at me and said, you know, you promised. He would say, we will take the convalescent home to court if we have to stop them from force-feeding her, to stop them from extraordinary treatment. And by the way, we had to do that on 6 occasions. The 6th time we did it, the judge told the convalescent home that he was not hearing the case anymore, that his decision was permanent, he wasn't backing down. They would not be allowed to continue attempting to keep her alive against her wishes. Eventually, my grandmother did pass on her own. And then the next part of the promise came into play, because she made me swear I would have her cremated and I would not spend a penny more than $600 for the cremation. Problem is, that promise had been made 15 years earlier, and she hadn't accounted for inflation. She had accounted for her wishes because in that conversation, she handed me Jessica Mitford's book, The American Way of Death. Handed me that and said, here you go. You read this, you'll see why I want what I want. So yeah, I read the book. And by the way, I love the book. I think the Mitford sisters in general were a passel of lunatics, but Jessica wrote a good book. So, armed with that, grandmother passes, $600 tops. That was all I was allowed to spend. By the way, I ended up spending $650. I figured she would forgive me the $50 because so much time had elapsed, and I was keeping it very, very close to what she had wanted, even though the going rate for a cremation was over $1,000, and that was through funeral parlors. But I had done my homework, and I spoke with the crematoriums, and I found out how much they charge funeral parlors for cremating a deceased, and it was a little over $300. It was something like $320. So, yeah, I was able to do that for her. So what does this have to do with end-of-life preparations? My grandmother was very prepared. Her mistake was not to act on this herself, but to hand the, I don't want to say the burden. I don't think she saw it in those terms. I think she saw me more as a trustee, a caretaker of her wishes. But she was asking me to commit a very serious crime, to do something that would have landed me in jail and kept me from sleeping at night for the rest of my life. I don't think she quite understood that, but she did, in her own way, try to secure her exit from this world on her own terms. I am not advocating that for anybody, and in fact, this is a cautionary tale. This is the please don't go to your grandchildren and tell them to murder you. Just don't do that. I cannot tell you, I don't have words for how horrific that was to be on the wrong end of that discussion. Not when I was 15, and I didn't take it seriously because I was a 15-year-old, but later, when the time came and I had to confront the fact that this is what she wanted, this is what she was trusting me to do for her, and it was playing out in my head. If you love your grandmother, you'll do this. It's like, if you love your grandmother, you can't possibly do this. If you do this, you'll go to jail. If you don't do this, you'll be guilty for the rest of your life because you're letting your grandmother suffer. It was an awful situation to throw on someone. I would not do that to my worst enemy. But what we do take away from this, at least what I take away from this, is I am making as many of my plans for myself as I can. I am looking at where I would like my remains, because I too will be cremated. That's something that is very popular in my family. I will be cremated, and now I need to look at, do I want my remains scattered? Do I want them in a columbarium? And I'm thinking columbarium now. If I want to do that, I need to secure that now. I need to do that for myself. If I want a funeral with whatever kind of service, I need to make all of those arrangements now. If I want to go without a service, which is what my grandmother wanted, then I need to get in touch with a funeral parlor, make that very clear that they are to take my remains, incinerate them, and send them off to the columbarium of my choice, so that no one else has to make those decisions for me. Because this could be a very difficult decision for the people around me. Not everyone believes in cremation. Not everyone wants a big funeral. Not everyone thinks that no funeral is appropriate. People all bring their own baggage to the table when they look at this. I know I brought my own baggage to the table when my grandmother's time came. There were a lot of things that she wanted me to do that I did not want to do. I wanted to have some kind of funeral for her, anything, even a little funeral. That was not what she wanted, so we didn't have it. So whatever my need for that closure was unmet. And I think when you're looking at this, there are a lot of things you need to look at. You can't just look at yourself, but you need to look at your family. Is your family going to need that closure? Is your family religious? Are there members of your family who are more religious than others and might really get a great benefit out of that? Are there members of your family who are dyed-in-the-wool atheists and will be offended by a funeral? It's up to you to figure out how to juggle that. But it's not something any of us should be leaving to our loved ones, because frankly, it's not the way it used to be. 300-400 years ago, families all had the same faith, the same traditions. It's like you went the same way your grandfather went, the way his grandfather went. There were fixed protocols for what to do when someone passed. Families had their own rituals, their own traditions, their own religious observations. It's not that way anymore. These days, most families, I wouldn't go so far as to say all families, but I will definitely say most families are comprised of many people with many religious traditions, many religious points of view. It is rare to find a family that everybody is going to the same church, and everybody, even if they're going to the same church, has the same degree of faith and belief in that particular church. So yeah, it's not like it used to be. And the thing is, if you as the person involved make your decisions, you do it yourself, you've got it worked out, everything is in place. In my case, I'm going to make sure everything is in place by writing the checks for it and signing the contracts in my lifetime, so that it will be absolutely fixed and binding, and nobody will get to come in and say, oh no, that's not what she wanted, because they won't be able to challenge what I want if I'm the one who signed the check. I think that it's incumbent on the person who is passing into the next life, or not, or whatever it is you believe in, to make the arrangements so that it's not a source of guilt for family members. You end up leaving behind someone who is very religious. If you are not religious, they feel guilty that you didn't have that funeral that they wanted. You end up leaving behind someone who is not at all religious, and you wanted a big funeral and they might not see the need. Make your own arrangements, and no one can dispute what your wishes were. So I think we need to look at these things, especially as we get older. I know for me, I have been looking at this. And keep in mind, I am convinced I got another 30 years, because I think you all know, I intend to outlive the late Queen Mum, and I believe she went to, 101? That means I got to make it to 102. And I am determined to do so. I am in good health. I see no reason why I can't go another 30 years. Hopefully the pipes will be unfrozen by then. But I'm not looking at this anytime soon. But I see no reason why I shouldn't do exactly what I want to do. For one thing, I am in Pennsylvania, and I am leaning, I haven't made the decision exactly yet, I am leaning toward having my ashes interred in a columbarium in Providence, Rhode Island. There is a cemetery there, Swan Point. I used to live near Swan Point, and I would walk there every evening, walk around the cemetery. I loved it. It was a beautiful place. I have fond memories of that place. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. On the other hand, maybe they can just scatter the remains. By the way, Swan Point will do that for me as well. They'll just scatter them. But that's what I'm thinking of. I am not thinking that Pennsylvania will be my final resting place. I am thinking Swan Point will be. So that's something that the people around me might find very odd, very hard to understand, because of course they didn't live my life. They do not have the positive associations I have with Providence, which is a city I love. So yeah, I'm looking at this. I am looking at this seriously now, while I do not have the need to do it. There is no rush. I am not crawling into my casket, not by a long shot, but I'm preparing for something that is going to come. The only certainty is death and taxation. And yes, there is no getting around this one. And given the fact that I've spent a large part of my life planning for things that might happen, and then they turned out not to happen, this is one of those things that, yeah, it's going to happen. Nothing I can do to stop it. So I might as well take the initiative and plan now. So I guess that's what I wanted to throw out, because I started hearing this in the comments. One of our viewers in particular. This is the comment Tammy Clark left on yesterday's video. My husband and I both have wills, including living wills. Our daughter is the executor. My husband and brother are backups for her. We have pets, and they are our chief concern if something were to happen to us. Our lawyer told us to handwrite instructions for the pets and attach them to our wills. None of this is something that anyone wants to think about, but it makes things so much easier for those who are in charge of the EOL care final wishes for a friend or loved one. I was the executor of my mother's will. She had all of her medical care wishes and final arrangements communicated very clearly. That made it so much easier for me to know what to do in a time of such grief. It really felt like a final gift from her. Now, absolutely, I think that is something that we can all agree with. Yes, somebody doing this for you is absolutely going to make your life easier. So, that's what I'm throwing out for you. I'm sorry it's such a grim topic. Most of us just don't like to think of what is going to happen as we wind down and get ready to move on. I think about this once in a while. I am not death obsessed. Like I said, I'm going to live for another 30 years. I don't need to be death obsessed yet. I need to be death obsessed when I get to be in my late 90s. That's when I'm going to start thinking about this very, very seriously. For the moment, it's just normal preparedness. And one of the things, interestingly enough, that Tammy mentioned in her comment that I had not considered is I need to make sure I have some clear instructions, because heaven forbid something happened to me tomorrow. What about Audie? Because I have a cat who will not wish to leave my home. He won't want to go somewhere else. He's going to want to stay here. He's probably going to want to move in with Jane, but Jane is in her 80s. So yeah, I need to figure out how to deal with that, and I'm just not sure what the answer is yet, but I need to do it. Will I have trouble finding someone to take care of Audie? No. He's going to be the sole heir of my estate if he survives me. And by the way, I am putting that into my will, that if my cat survives me, everything is going to be left in trust for his care. So will I have trouble finding a home for him? No. He's going to come with money attached. But the fact is, there are all these little things that we have to consider, that we have to look at. And this is a much more convenient time than, when we're actually looking down the barrel of the inevitable. or worse, if we're leaving it for our loved ones who have no idea what we want. Because I've found, it's been my experience, I don't know about yours, I've found when you try to sit your loved ones down and have a talk with them like this, at least in my family, they start off by saying, oh no, don't you have that grandma talk with me, because I'm not going to kill you and I'll walk out the door if you try to make me. Because that's what they go like in my family. And yes, everybody in my family knew what my grandmother asked me to do. So, and I do still have a couple of family members who will say, you broke your promise to her. Like, yeah, obviously. But the fact is, it's there. It's the inevitable. And I hope this hasn't been too unpleasant. I hope this hasn't been triggering. I hope this hasn't brought you into an unhappy mental space. My suggestion would be to simply look at this when you're in the mood. Because looking at it now before the need is imperative means that we can take it in small doses, in little baby steps, as it's convenient, as our emotions can tolerate it, and get it all out of the way. Make sure it's done and then get on with our lives, because that's what this is all about, the ability to get on with our lives without having anything unpleasant hanging over our heads. All right. Again, I know this has not been a pleasant topic. I hope it's been of value, though, and we are going to take a look at a very pleasant slideshow on the way out. I think I'm going to find puppies and kitties, because that always cheers me up. All right, thanks for being with me. I hope to see you next time. If I am out of commission due to power failures and I'm not responding to your comments, please don't be concerned. I will get to them when I can, but just do understand that it's possible we may lose power, and therefore I may not be able to get online. All right. Thanks for being with us. Hope to see you next time. In the meanwhile, have a terrific day.